A guy was asking what is going on with a goofy scene in Code Geass. Some were calling it amazing and some were calling it contrived. The argument was coming down to one side calling it foreshadowed and very effective as a scene, and the other side calling it convenient and overbearing. So what was it? This response explains it in detail, which pretty much tells you it's both. The gears going out of control was foreshadowed, and the circumstances under which it happened were artificial. And this is something not many are willing to accept. Something can be both good on paper and bad in execution. You can warn the audience about a future event which will happen, and said event can be too much because of the ridiculous way it happened. But wait a second, most people agree it was also very effective, so how can it be bad in execution? It's because there is a difference between simply causing a reaction and executing a properly structured chain of events. Everyone who watched it was shocked by that scene. If emotions are all you care about, then yes, it was very effective just because it made you feel stuff. You didn't see it coming, although you knew it would happen. If, on the other hand, you have critical thinking, you know it wasn't handled well because there was no gradual progression from point A to point B. It was literally, this is going to happen at some point, and then it happened out of the blue and in a most over-the-top way. The twist in the last episodes of Tatami Galaxy, for example, is properly foreshadowed because you were constantly getting hints about it throughout the series. It wasn't mentioned once and then it happened. So once again, foreshadowing versus contrivance is a simple case of dumb emotions versus superior logic.
You clearly weren't paying attention. Izuku did deserve one for all. Did you even pay attention? He has a great sense of heroism, and he had to work for it. I just can't see the problem. How am I supposed to see you as credible?
Why am I given the impression that all shonen want to imitate the Attack on Titan twist? How the whole plot is a master plan set forth before the story even began. Sure, Bleach predates it, but nobody copied that back then. In fact, they found it to be stupid. And yet look what's going on right now. One Piece was all part of a plan set forth by the Nika Fruit 800 years ago. Dragon Ball was all part of a plan set forth by a wish to the dragon when Goku was a baby. Black Clover was all part of a plan set forth by the Time Demon before Asta was born. Sukuna's release was all part of a plan set forth by the main villain in Jujutsu Kaisen. There are also indirect cases like how the ending of My Hero Academia was obvious since the very beginning, or how Boruto spoils the ending before the time skip. There is also the aforementioned Eren in Attack on Titan, Aizen in Bleach, and who knows what else I don't know of yet. Let's go over the reasons for why anything being pre-planned and staged, instead of cause and effect based on what every character is doing, is a very bad thing. The easiest one is how it strips characters of free will, since they are not acting as they should, but as the master plan ordains. And don't give me that bullshit about all characters in fiction are puppets by default, since they are doing whatever the writer wants them to do. Good storytelling is about letting the characters act, however they should act, instead of having the Jake Skywalker effect where nobody thinks that's how the character should be acting. Another problem is taking away a character's accomplishments. Whatever he achieves is not based on effort and determination, but because it was pre-planned to happen. Hey, congratulations, Shonen MC, you saved the world! You know what? I take that back. You don't deserve any congratulations, since it was meant to happen no matter what you did. It was your fate, so why should I congratulate you for achieving what you would achieve regardless of your actions? The fans will obviously use the special chosen one excuse, aka he was chosen to do it because he deserves it, so why is it bad having the right person doing the right thing and getting rewarded for it? Because he wasn't a chosen one at first, they all begin as underdogs and average people, so they can be relatable. Making them chosen ones takes away the relatability and turns them into power fantasies. Also, they never were the right people for the job. If they were created for doing certain things, therefore they never did anything for being the right people. They were created or chosen to do those things. And again, don't use the everything is fatalistic in fiction excuse on me. Even if a writer maps his entire plot beforehand, it still needs to feel natural instead of characters magically acting out of character just so the plot can move as it was pre-planned. The lamest part is how most in the audience loves this bullshit twist no matter how many times they see it, just because it subverted their expectations. Oh, we've been lied to the whole time? That's good, because this way, it makes the plot less predictable, therefore it's amazing. Although being unpredictable only means it didn't meet your headcanon. Something which can be negative as it can be positive, depending on what you expected to happen and you didn't get it. They will also say it recontextualizes the entire story. If you take it from the top after you know the twist, you get a completely different view of the plot. Not a better one, mind you, a different one. And that's the only thing they care about, getting something different instead of getting something good. This changes everything, they will say. When changing everything doesn't mean you get something better. The last thing they will say in order to defend fatalism is that it's good writing because it negates cop-outs. Everything that seemed to be plot armor, aka the character should have died but didn't, and anything that seems to be full of plot convenience, aka a character is at a place where something conveniently happens at that moment, are now not lazy writing. The character didn't have plot armor or plot convenience because it was planned to happen that way. See, it's not a cop-out, everything was carefully mapped to happen that way. Insert name something something sensei is a genius. He doesn't make mistakes because it was all according to plan. Let's completely ignore how that way everyone was a robot executing a program instead of having free will. How nobody deserves any reward since it wasn't him who did it, but the program he was running. How subverting your expectations can easily mean nobody's behaving as they should be behaving. How recontextualizing the entire story doesn't give you a better story, but rather a different story that erases everything you liked about the original story. And how using the all according to plan as an excuse to cover up bad writing is still bad writing for all the reasons I mentioned.
Say, did you know that if you magically resurrect your main character, it makes sense because he's the main character? Also, do you know it's not an asspool if someone resurrects in the past because it's a flashback? Similarly, if something is shown to happen in the future, then it makes sense when it does. But does it make sense in the way it happens? Is the writing excusing properly what has to happen no matter what? Establishing that something has to happen does not excuse bad writing. It needs to make sense in story. If it can't make sense, it doesn't matter if it's meant to happen because it's garbage. Stop using this excuse.
There is a scientific term called a Schrodinger's cat, where until it is confirmed with certainty, a cat can be alive and dead at the same time. If you're ignorant and not sure, then from your perspective the cat is both alive and dead. Jutsu pulled a Schrodinger's cat in order to excuse the asspool of Nobara coming back, and the fanboys, ignorant as they always are, ate it up. Their stupid logic was, Nobara's death was never confirmed, therefore no matter what Gege did with her would be excused since it doesn't contradict anything in the story. Only it does contradict a lot of things. Her supposed death was meant to be soul-crushing for the protagonist. No, not Gojo, the other one, I can't remember his name, he's that forgettable. Her death is what drove him over the edge. Undoing her death cheapens both the tragic moment as well as the protagonist's sudden character development. Not to mention the fact that her absence from half of the manga removed the very important feminist representation that everyone was yelling about in the first season. How can you remove such important representation without changing completely what the show is all about? If you thought this bullshit wasn't big enough, prepare to be amazed. An ignorant fanboy claimed Nobara wasn't confirmed dead, therefore she was alive because we didn't see her in the afterlife. Only we did see her in the afterlife, along with everyone else who died. Guess how the fanboy excused it? By saying that was only the protagonist's perspective and not what she actually was. He thought she was dead, and thus only he sees her in the afterlife. With this simple excuse, the fanboys can now excuse anything being foreshadowed, regardless of what we see happening on screen or on paper, because it's only the perspective of the protagonist. He could be seeing one thing when in actuality a completely different thing could have happened. So when we spot a contradiction in any story, it's not a plot hole, it's just a faulty assumption of the protagonist. For example, remember that scene in Dragon Ball where Goku blows up the upper part of Cell, yet he regenerates despite his main cell that regenerates all the rest is in his head? Well, as it turns out, it isn't a plot hole. It's only Goku's thinking he blew up the upper body. In actuality, he missed and probably blew up a planet with billions of people.
As you see, there is no such thing as plot holes in any story, and no writer should ever bother to keep track of what is happening in the story he writes. Whatever we see is just a faulty perception of the protagonist. The writer can change anything he likes, whenever he likes it, and can then excuse it as not a plot hole, since what we see is not what actually happened. Brilliant reasoning that only a mindless fanboy from the Digipedo school of thought could have come up with. Everything is a bunch of lines on a piece of paper that can be interpreted however the heck you want to.
Do 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 do.